Dave didn't look at this.
For fuck's sake.
Oh, brilliant. Good evening, all everybody that's in. We're a wee bit later than normal, but it's a wee bit of a special day in that on the old Endless Celts podcast. The main man, Brendan Rodgers, he's back. He's back for another 3 years in his 5-year plan. Brilliant contract. But anyway, before we go on and talk about the good stuff, I've got to thank the show sponsor, Sharna. Follow the link below. You'll get 10% off. And Stephen Coltap, we've not forgot, but you've still trying to sort out your prize. So we will be in touch soon to get your second prize for Super 6. We'll get on to that. But anyway, how we all doing, lads? How we doing?
Feeling absolutely fantastic. We've got Brendan Rodgers in our actual stream.
I know.
I mean, Willie's rocking them.
Some strings. Ross McCall.
Ross McCall's
Endless Celts exclusive.
But to be fair, like, oh fuck off. To be fair, like, I'm absolutely buzzing. I know for weeks we were carrying on and stuff about who would get the job, and I was saying Brendan Rodgers is not coming back, but he's come home. He's come home with his bag of cans. He's steaming in Mallorca with his wife. He's loving life, and we're all happy. Love it.
He's not there. He's there.
Well, there's two of them, right? They're twins.
Right. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's get into it and talk Brendan Rodgers. Let's get into it. So, the main man, he's back in the building, although we've not had an official sort of press or anything that Celtic confirmed at the day at 12 o'clock. And I seen a wee hang on Twitter earlier for Tony Haggerty. The guy absolutely summed it up well. And he said, Brendan Rodgers is a big club appointment. Celtic are acting like a big club. From the disappointment to the appointment, Rodgers is the best manager Celtic could have recruited at this moment in time. It's box office. It's a statement of intent. Celtic mean business. I think he summed it up absolutely brilliant. What do you think, Brendan? Were you happy with his speech?
I thought he was a beautiful human being. He's got great characters, Tony. Just glad to do. I can't do this. I
wonder how long it was going to be.
I am.
I thought it was going to do for the whole show at one point.
What I've been saying is, I'm over the moon. I don't think. I mean, this point a few weeks ago when Ange, it was announced he was gone. I never ever thought we could get somebody anywhere near the same caliber, and we've gone and went and done it. I mean. There's out the short list. There's nowhere, like we said last week. There's nobody even on the same planet as Brendan when it comes to his CV and what he's done and what he's done with us in the past. To get someone of that caliber, I'm just absolutely over the moon. I'm honestly buzzing. I can't wait to see what he's going to do with the team that he's got here. Just already buzzing for pre-season now.
Totally. I think we've all just been hyper ever since the news kind of got made official. We all got a wee bit excited last night when Fabrizio Romano, the guy in the know, kind of said everything was agreed and stuff, and we even got the here we go. Sky Sports were reporting that. I don't think anybody thought we were going to be upgrading on the manager in the summer, and that's not to criticise Ange. I think he'd done a fantastic job over the 2 year, but I think. If you just kind of mark them now, I would say Rodgers is a better manager, but maybe that's just because he's in the door and you just want to admit that. But I don't know how are you feeling, Stephen, about it all.
I'm absolutely buzzing. Like Willie, I mean, we can all think back to the way Rodgers left us and things like that, but things like that get quickly forgot about, don't they? Do you know what I mean? He went to Leicester, he continued in great success, took them to 2 5th-place finishes. I think it was Europa Conference League semi-final, FA Cup, Community Shield. I know, Andrew, what was saying here, but
sorry.
I just think, to be fair, he's the best we could have got. Me and Willie spoke about this before. The shortlist was very underwhelming. There wasn't much great names. I know we were talking about Knutson and talking about Kieran McKenna. We talked about Kieran McKenna from Ipswich, Willie, and things like that. So I mean, all these different names get through it, and the one that stood out the whole time was Brendan Rodgers. And what's great about this, you have to give him credit as well. People seem to forget he left, and his family got targeted. Their house got robbed. He got levels of abuse probably never seen before in terms of well, Lenny obviously experienced worse, but Rodgers got it really bad when he left, and he had the decision to make the comeback. So I mean, and he said in his interview or his brief kind of comments today, it was a simple decision to come back home for him and his family back to Celtic Football Club, and I think we'll have to take that. And I know a lot of people are thinking he just plays to the gallery, and yeah, most people do. Ange Postecoglou did it and was swallowed it up like soup. Rodgers does it in a way, but I genuinely believe he's coming back and he wants to make an imprint in this team and this club. And his wee slogan, let's get to work, and he's going to get straight down to it. And I'm happy that he's in. I'm happy there's no rolling contract. And a 3-year contract offers us as a club a bit of security as well in that instance where we're not worried that he's going to go for peanuts or he's going to leave at the end of a rolling contract after a season. So if a club does come back in for him, we'll get 9-10 million again, guaranteed. And we're protecting ourselves. And we already know, I mean, Michael Beale must be shiting his wee pants. The Masters come home and he's going to take him to the big school, like I said to you guys last night on the group chat. And I'm so excited. I'm like, Willie, I'm like, Brandy, I just can't wait until the 1st of July when pre-season starts and we get to see what's going to happen with the squad up and coming.
I know, it's class. Like it's just amazing just having the main man back. Is like you say, Stephen, Ange, like Ross said it a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about how Ange probably meant no things at the time, and it did. You need to get emotionally involved in the whole thing and stuff. And Brendan Rodgers done it. He'll do it again. Whether you like, I think we'll all eat it all up again when Brendan Rodgers starts skiing us all the wee sound bites. It probably will mean most of them at the time, but he's got to kind of do that to try and get the fans invested and stuff. And it's just all the nonsense behind Ange and stuff going away, and then like some of the stuff that you're actually hearing from some of the sections of fans on him, it's actually embarrassing, to be fair, in my opinion. But I don't know, how are you feeling, Ross, about the whole Brendan is back?
Hi, listen, just sort of echo what the guys have said. Delighted that he's back. Faye, it was first sort of mooted that he was in line as one of the candidates. It's who, well, certainly me, I think it's who most people wanted. And I have to give Celtic, well, certainly Dermot Desmond, you have to give massive credit to for getting this over the line. He knew it could have been a divisive appointment, but certainly I can speak for all of us when I say that he didn't care if there was a section of the fan base that wasn't going to like it, because it was for the betterment of Celtic. And out of all the candidates, Brendan Rodgers is by far and away the best candidate. And to get him over the line again is outstanding. And people say, oh, he's not a real Celtic fan, like he said when he left and stuff like that. And people are talking as if he's going to do the same thing again. For me, he's got a 3-year deal. Now, the last time, I don't think Brendan Rodgers would have left if he. Now, I'm not saying he was totally innocent. It wasn't great the way he left, right? It was poor timing, but the board didn't follow through with the ambition that he had. He'd done everything domestically, and he wanted to go into the next stage in Europe. He asked to be backed in that, and he was let down time and time again. The relationship broke down between him and Law. Now, whether that's been repaired or not, time will tell. But I mean, you would have to think that it has been, because he's no hesitation. And he said in an interview, pretty much one of his first interviews when he was at Leicester, that he would have no hesitation in coming back to Celtic if the opportunity arose again and everyone was right. It seems to be. He's walking into a stronger team than he took over the last time. And for me, if Celtic, there's been, well, about a week, maybe more than that, since he was pretty much the only one in the running. And I think in that time, Brendan Rodgers has already started working, and he's got John Kennedy on board. He's got Harry Kewell on board, Gavin Strang, all guys that have been rumoured to maybe be wanting to join Ange, and he's got them all on board. So he started well in doing that, and for me, he's done that, and the time frame of sort of a week. Plus, he's obviously, I think the deal was pretty easy to make, but then obviously it was the assurances and stuff that he was looking for. Because what is the point in Brendan Rodgers coming back to Celtic for a second stint to do the same or worse than what he did the last time? It's pointless. And he's basically told the board, because he's coming for a position of strength. He knows that Celtic want him, and he's quite happy to come to Celtic, but he's not coming to Celtic to just do what happened the last time. He wants to take us to the next level. And if Celtic and Dermot Desmond have promised him things, and they follow up with these things and give Brendan Rodgers the tools that he's asked for to do the job to the best of his ability, to take us to where he wants his vision to go to, then for me, I think Brendan Rodgers stays for the duration of his contract. I mean, you can't say that for with certainty, but if Celtic back him the way he's been asked and the way he's been promised, or what you're led to believe he's been promised, then I don't see any reason why Brendan Rodgers would go this time, because he knows the backlash he got the last time. Plus, we all talk about the way he left, and I think Leicester's come in, the relationship's broken down, he's an opportunity to go. He's probably thought to himself, listen, I don't really want to go mid-season, but Leicester went, look, we're getting you an out here, but you need to come the now. And for me, we'll never know truly, but I think if Tottenham Hotspur come in for Ange Postecoglou in February, Ange Postecoglou goes just the same, but it was just timing. And Ange Postecoglou has come out looking better than what Brendan Rodgers did, probably more by accident than design. But listen, he's in the door, he's back, he's the best candidate for the job, and I cannot wait for him to get started. I cannot wait for to see what he does with the players that's at his disposal. Obviously, we'll lose a couple, but Brendan Rodgers doesn't need to do a full rebuild like Ange had to. He just needs to tweak it a bit and bring in a couple of players that hopefully can take us to that next level, but time will tell.
Time will tell, Ross. Time will tell. Totally agree. And kind of on that wee bit, Anthony, about how, like, obviously the guys were saying, when you think of the candidates that were there, like Potter, I think maybe the fans, not necessarily dreaming, but I feel that was more one for the fans being a wee bit ambitious. I think Brendan Rodgers was always kind of at the forefront in most of the fans, and I think clearly that's Dermot Desmond's guy. Maresca seemed a valid. I say a valid candidate. I think it was valid in the sense that they were serious about him. Knutson, I think that was a wee bit like, you ever remember the left back? I think he played with Rosenborg. Every time we wanted a left back, it seemed the fans were always wanting this left back. I think that was the same with Knutson. It was just the fans just will put him forward in it. But I think all the way it was Rodgers was the main sort of one that sort of got the fans. It was a wee bit got to split the fan base. But I think in the majority, we know what we're getting. Like Ross said, I don't think he's coming back to do. Obviously, we want to win the league and win the cups in a bit. I don't think that's his sole reason for coming back. And when you also look at the candidates that were mentioned in the shortlist, it was, if you've got essentially a guy that went to 14 games at Parma and won 4 of them, up against a guy that went to Leicester, finished twice, fifth in 2 seasons, twice, won an FA Cup and a Community Shield. I was a big part of why they got relegated as well, probably. But if you look into that, he wasn't really getting backed, and he lost a lot of players. Anybody that tried to make an argument for Maresca is just, for me, football wasn't for them. It's Rodgers had to be the answer all the way. I don't know what you think.
100%. From day one, Brendan Rodgers has been the outstanding candidate on that shortlist for Anena, and actually include Graham Potter in amongst that as well. I do rate Graham Potter. I think he was on a sort of hiding to nothing really by joining the Chelsea revolution, but under Todd Bowley. I think that's going to take a little while to sort of come to the fore. So perhaps similar to Ange, you had to take that opportunity when it came along. But even at that, I think Brendan's an outstanding candidate. Knutson, yeah, absolutely. You got to say he's done well with Bodo Glimt, but again, it's less of a risk than others, but it was still a risk for me. And I don't want the guy that sets out cones for Pep's training sessions anywhere near the Celtic job. And he's okay, he's had 14 games at Parma, but that's literally it. And if you're handing out the Celtic job on that, then God help us all. He's cutting his teeth, in the Championship, and fair enough if he goes on to big things, then fair play to him. But there is not one of them for me at this moment can hold a candle to Brendan Rodgers. Yeah, okay, they say it's maybe not ended great at Leicester, but he had a great couple of years prior to that. And then, of course, everything that happened with the Leicester owners, sadly passing away in those kind of horrible circumstances. And with the pandemic as well, the family that run Leicester made a lot of their fortune through travel. So I think they've took a big hit through COVID and, the impact that's had. And I just don't think that they've had the same... They're not as invested, quite literally, as their dad was, and I think from then it's just sort of what it's like in the English Premier League. If you stand still, you're going backwards, and I think it was that lack of investment in the departures of some senior players, like the likes of Kasper Schmeichel, etc. And I'm not making too many excuses for him, but he did have a horrific run with injuries last season as well. Let's not forget. And they've never really replaced. I know Vardy's still kicking about, but he's a shadow of the player that he was, and they've never really been able to kick on. So you look at that beforehand, as they say, we far outgunned against other clubs with bigger resources. He still managed to get 2 fifth-place finishes, and he won them their first ever FA Cup, which in a lot of people's eyes, the older fans, is just as romantic as winning the Premier League itself. That you'll never forget your days out, successful days out at Wembley. Ross is absolutely superb comment, and I know Russell's brought it up as well there about the whole timing thing. And had Spurs been interested in February, would have probably said the same thing. Certain sections of the support that are putting out photographs of banners for 3 years ago on Twitter might want to remember, they're calling Brendan Rodgers all of these things, but he actually stayed longer in his first stint at Celtic than what Ange did. So, it's funny how these things turn out. That's actually no a diss against Ange, by the way. I think as disappointed as we were, most of us do understand why he's went, and it's a job that he couldn't really turn down. But in terms of the main man being back in the building, as Stephen says, I know there will still sometimes be a section that will need a bit of convincing, but time heals most wounds. And if you're going to be disappointed about having the guy back in the building that literally made a monopoly on Scottish football, 7 trophies out of 7, and gave us some of the most incredible memories any of us have ever had as supporters, then I think there's something wrong with you, quite frankly.
Can I just come back on that? You mentioned the Leicester thing, right? I've seen over the last couple of weeks this narrative coming out of the papers. Simon Jordan and TalkSport, a few other pundits saying that he failed at Leicester. Brendan Rodgers did not fail. He did not fail at Leicester City. What failed Leicester was the fact they didn't back him in the 4th season. A bit of deja vu in his season with us when he actually left. And they sold their best centre half. They didn't replace him. They didn't want to spend any money. He was left with Jamie Vardy and Iheanacho up front. He wanted a new striker in. It was publicly known. He had to play Danny Ward in nets, who was on loan to Aberdeen, I think, the season previous because they lost Schmeichel. They didn't back him. Now, he finished 5th twice, and then in his 3rd season, he finished 8th. That's not a manager who just falls off the top of a cliff in the 4th season. There was other circumstances around that. And I don't understand why it's getting pumped out that he's failed or he's having to build his reputation back up. His reputation is as high as it's ever been. This isn't a redemption. This is not redemption for Rodgers. He's coming back to do a job for us at Celtic.
You're bang on, Stephen. And listen, I know he gets a lot of stick, and I tend to disagree with him more on his views out with sport. But for most parts, Simon Jordan is actually, I think, quite a good listen on TalkSport.
Not but Alistair.
I think he's been not Gordon Alistair, no. But I think he gives he gives an alternate view on a lot of things, and it's that kind of unique thing about a former football club owner, Premier League football club owner now in the media. I think he's an interesting person to listen to on most things. but not just him, I have to say, but Martin Keown as well, and others, especially in the TalkSport studio, have been so far off the mark this last week or two with regards to a lot of the things that they're coming away with about Brendan Rodgers. And I think a lot of it is still this toxic mixture of arrogance and ignorance that they can't accept how big Celtic are. He was calling it today a sideways move. It's a promotion because Celtic are a bigger club than Leicester. Doesn't matter which league they're in. Celtic, from now until Kingdom Come, will always be a bigger football club than Leicester City. And, whether people like it or not, and to be fair to Brendan, he actually used to say this in a lot of his interviews, and although those clips have been coming up online recently, he never used to let the media away with that when he would be interviewed with a Leicester City jacket on as well. Celtic Football Club's one of the biggest football clubs in the world, and they've made a big managerial appointment today, and God help our opponents come the start of the season.
Oh, no. They must have been getting all excited when Ange taken that Spurs job. Then, what is it, only 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks later, it's Brendan Rodgers, the guy that won 7 out of 7, won every trophy gone, just came back in the door. I mean, it must be great being a Rangers fan right now. I'll tell you
Soul
that.
destroying.
Oh, it's like, it's just, it's brilliant. It's just that Steve McLaren one. And you seen that Steve McLaren meme on the bench? He's like, going, and he goes,
That's Roy Hodgson. Yeah.
It's just like, oh yes, Ange's left. Oh, it's fucking Brendan Rodgers. But aye, it's just, I think we've all been in cloud nine. It's the guy we all wanted, and when you seen the list and stuff, so I think we'll kind of move forward. I wasn't sure whether to bring it up, but I'll come to Brendan Rodgers himself. I mean, we may as well get it for him to see what he thinks. What did you think of the North Curve statement? Now, personally, I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, I guess, but I think every man and their dog kind of knew Brendan Rodgers was coming in. Why did they need to wait till, was it 3-4 minutes till after it's announced and put out that statement? I just think, I think we all agree it was a wee bit, not everybody was sold on Rodgers due to how he left. I think a lot of it was due to mid-season, but folk will maybe have their own opinion on why he left and things like that. Say he's not a proper Celtic man. I don't think the Celtic were unanimous on Brendan Rodgers, but the majority of them wanted him in. And I just think, as much as, for me anyway, the Green Brigade, the North Curve, aren't exactly the voice for Celtic, but the biggest sort of support group. So to an extent, they are the biggest voice. I just think statements like that for me could potentially cause divide where it doesn't need to be. We're in a good place, and for me, we didn't actually need that. I don't know what you think about that, Willie.
Oh, fucking timed that well. I was just taking a drink of
water. All right, well, sorry, Stephen. I'll ask Stephen
right.
if you want to try to get a drink.
Aye, the timing's no great, and I understand. And listen, Brendan will know himself coming back into the job that he's going to have to face adversity when it's coming back in, and there's people he needs to win over. Everybody knows that. Send me the address.
Careful now, careful.
Aye, so he's going to have to win people over. You know, the second question in his presser during the week is going to be about how he left and how he's going to have to win people over. He knows he's going to have to do that. At the timing, yeah, it's shit. For me, I was never one. I understand why people are upset and annoyed when he left. I was never one that was calling him a rat and all the rest of it. But I understand why people, maybe not as far as people have gone, but I understand why people felt that way. But at the time, we spoke about it last week, he sat in that presser and he pretty much was told that Celtic are signs fed, and didn't understand why he actually said, I've got 100 wingers, why do I need any more? And from that point on, you knew he wasn't going to be here much longer. The relationship fell apart, and another opportunity came along. I totally believe every word he says when he talks about how much he loves this club and how much it means to him and how much he is a fan. But the certain circumstances came along, and he felt like he couldn't live in that working environment, so he moved on to another. And by the way, he's not going to be here forever again. There's going to be a point where he'll move on again for this time. It's life, especially life of a football manager. It's not as long lived anymore. You're talking 2 years max for most managers now in most positions. The last longest serving manager I can remember is Wenger's or Ferguson's. It just doesn't happen anymore. So he will move on, but I do think it's different this time round. I don't think. I mean, he was out of a job for a long time last time. Came in, so I think he still wanted to achieve some certain things. I think it's a different mindset now, and I hopefully do see him staying for the foreseeable. To be honest with you, this time I think it's a totally different. If you're talking about moving on to get a bigger club, he doesn't need to come and prove himself at Celtic. He's already done that. He's already proven himself over the last 10, 15 years of his career. Any of these top jobs, I thought he was nailed on for the Spurs job when it first came up, and I don't think anybody else would have had any arguments against that because he's stature in the game. So he doesn't need to come here to prove his stature in the game. He's already done that. I just think Ross mentioned it with that interview when he first went to Leicester. He said, if the opportunity is there to go back again and the timing's right, I think the stars are aligned and the timing's absolutely spot on. And I for one, I'm buzzing. I know I kind of went off topic there, but I wanted to say about how I understand how he left. And we're at a point now where we're going into this new season. We've just come off the back of an unbelievable season. We've got a world-class coach back in the hot seat again. Like, I don't understand why you would tarnish that moment with a statement like that, and the timing wasn't great. I've seen a lot of people saying, look, the manager's in. There's people that were annoyed at him. All's forgiven. We're all in it together. Let's go again. And by the way, see in about 3 months' time when he's won every game, everybody will be back inside anyway. So no need to worry about that.
Nah, totally agreed. I think let's all keep it positive. So we'll park the North Curve statement to the side.
I want to say something on it. I want to say.
On you go, say your piece. Say your piece.
I think with the North Curve statement, right, start with the good stuff, right? The stuff to do for charity is fantastic, the food banks and all that type of stuff, and the tifos, which gets great praise, and it's fantastic, the colourful scenes that they organise. We've seen that the world record-breaking tifos have done at Celtic Park and Hampden and things like that for the final and lifting the league trophy against Aberdeen. What I find a wee bit ironic is there was 2 pictures going about today on Twitter from not the North Curve personally, but there was different like banners showing like the 10 row seasons not a play thing, back Rodgers or you'll lose him, and then you fast forward to the whole you swapped whatever it was legendary status for mediocrity down with Leicester. So again, they must have sensed that was coming. We could all feel it as fans that there was something going on behind the scenes, and also in the group itself, the Green Brigade, North Curve, whatever they call themselves, there is people in there who are buzzing about disappointment. You cannot tell me every single one of them members are not, there's not at least, I don't know, 20, 50 of them that are buzzing about Brendan Rodgers coming back. This is just, it's, the timing of it's wrong, the feel of it's wrong. I think they're trying to create like a divide within the Celtic fans, which isn't needed at this time. We were all kind of disappointed that Postecoglou left. Well, he nailed it. We need to focus and get into this new season with Rodgers. And he's not naive. He knows there's going to be fans he has to win back again in terms of support. And I'll be pretty interested to hear his first press conference. I think that's on Friday. So we'll get to know what his visions are and what he knows. And if he even mentions the whole fan situation, which I think he will do, not in great detail, but this is a man who left us because he didn't get backed. He literally said it. They had a glass ceiling. And the board didn't want to push the boat out and make more ambitious moves in European football. Yeah, it stung when he left, and we all called him things 100%. And you can see it online. People's Twitter accounts now, people are going through them, finding all these quote tweets from years ago about calling him a rat or calling him a scumbag and all that type of thing. That's fine. That's emotion. It happens. You get heated. You say things you don't mean, and later down the years you look back and think, I was an absolute dickhead. As Willie said, the lifespan of a manager now is 2 to 3 years. So, I mean, out with that, maybe Diego Simone, Alex Ferguson's, Arsene Wenger's, people like that, that's fine. But it very rarely happens no more. We all did Postecoglou to stay there for a lot more years than he did, but that's very much a de facto top 6 club in English football in Spurs. So I have no grudges against that. I wish him well, but I won't pay any interest to it. But the North Curve need to get behind the team. See statements, see posting stupid banners from 3 years ago. It doesn't make any sense. It's just stupid. And as I said, I back the Green Brigade and what to do in terms of bringing songs, bringing colourful events, bringing the food to the charities, the most needy people in Glasgow. And it's all fantastic to do them efforts, but just not getting ahead. We've all said things, we've done things about Brendan Rodgers. He's back now. He said it was a simple decision. He's been through the shit with us. Bring him home. He's coming home with his wee bag of cans. Get behind him.
No, I totally agree. It's like Willie was saying. He said if his heart, I think Brendan Rodgers' statement when he left Celtic, if he was deciding his heart, he'd have stayed at Celtic for a lifetime, but he was thinking in his head, and that's why the Leicester job made sense. And I think, although he was out of job, I think it showed that the now, like, I'm coming back so soon, I think proves a lot of what he said at the time, proves I'm right, and it shows there was that emotional pull. He is a true Celtic fan and stuff. And I mean, there's 111 folk in the chat now. It's class, and I like, as much as we're all on the bandwagon, I like comments like Brown Water coming in and saying like maybe a wee bit of perspective needed. Need a wee, like, we can't all be on the same page, but it's good to have you in Brown Water.
No, I'm not having that.
I'm not having it.
On what though?
You tell me.
I don't know. I think it's just because how works.
You tell me if the Man United job became available 3 weeks ago or something like that, Brendan Rodgers wouldn't be deserving or wouldn't be thought of for it.
I'm just being pointing out how.
No, I hear you. Totally.
I don't know what the perspective is. A perspective on what?
Because he's not a world class.
Maybe the praise we're giving him.
Class manager, the praise we're giving.
Listen,
down a wee bit.
Well, no, he's a really good manager. I don't think that point can be argued at all. He's proven himself over the last 10 to 15 years. He managed Swansea. He brought them up. He played a really, really good brand of football in the English Premier League, kept them up. He then moved on to Liverpool, a team who had been nowhere near the league title for 20 odd years. He almost won the league with them, but for a slip for the famous Steven Gerrard. But I mean, but for that slip, he probably wins the league title. Then he comes to Celtic. I know, listen, at the end of Liverpool, it didn't quite go well for him. He didn't do great in Europe, but he done that. He still done that at Liverpool. He still managed at Liverpool and held his own. Then he came to Celtic and won every trophy available to him. He's then went on to Leicester, and I know they just won the league title, but it was a strange season. He got, like you've alluded to earlier, Franny, he got 2 5th place finishes, an 8th place, an FA Cup and a Charity Shield. That's, for me, as good a record as what Martin O'Neill had at Leicester. Are we saying Martin O'Neill isn't a good manager because he has records at Leicester?
It's a better record than Martin O'Neill's.
Aye. Well, what did he win? I think he won like a league cups or something. But listen, Brendan Rodgers' managerial record for me speaks for itself.
Yep.
I understand. See, in terms of that North Curve tweet the day,
I'm waiting for
me, no, listen, I understand that banner right at the time. I understand why they made that, why they put it out there, because they were echoing what a lot of us felt at the time. Now, I never called Brendan Rodgers a rat. I wouldn't call anybody a rat, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it's a bit of it's a poor use of language. But listen, he done what he done, and I get why they made that banner at the time. But for to put it out there in the public domain the day again, minutes after he was announced, it's just ridiculous for me. Listen, he's been made the manager, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, I suppose. But he's the manager now, and we all have to back him. We hear this. We all can. We're all one. Everybody's welcome and all the rest of it. But because Brendan Rodgers walked away from Celtic after a really working relationship had broke down, he's a rat. I know for me, I don't see that. I think that he's come back when we asked him without any hesitation, and he's a true Celtic man at heart, whether you like it or not. I was going to make another point there, but I've had a wee mind blank. Listen, I know, it's every single time, but he's, listen, Brendan Rodgers, that's what I was going to say. So it's not like he killed somebody's ma, or he cheated, or he ran away with one of the guy's wives. He left Celtic to move on to another job. With the wrong kids. He left Celtic to move on to another job. He never done anything derogatory or really bad to hurt anybody or that. Do you know what I mean? The relationship had broke down, and if you're not enjoying coming into your place of work, you move on, because that's just what happens. It's just part of life. Rodgers done that, but the next time Celtic came calling, he's answered the call and he's came back, and albeit he's getting well paid for it, and he's asked for a lot of assurances, but there are assurances that a manager who has capabilities are quite well within his rights to ask for. And Celtic have been acting like a big club, because they are a big club, and they want to move. We want to go into that next stage, whatever that may be, but we need to give a better account of ourselves in the European stage. We haven't done it for a long while. We've watched Rangers get into a European final. We need to go into that next stage. Brendan Rodgers will come in and he'll guarantee you success domestically for me. He'll win league titles. I'm not saying he'll win trebles again. I'm not bothered about if he wins a treble or no. League title minimum, and then do something a bit better in Europe. And the way to do that is being backed how he hopes and he's asked. So that is the next stage for me. We've done all the trebles and all that. If we can do it again, by all means. But for me, next season, whether it was Ange or not, but it's obviously going to be Brendan now, the next stage, the next aim should be to be better in Europe.
Can I just say one thing here? I'm looking at the chat very closely,
and I bring it up there, by the way.
I can see people that are getting heated. Just respect each other and respect people's opinions. It's fine if you're not on board with the Rodgers chat, and it's fine if you are. So I mean, you don't need to get heated with each other, and just relax a wee bit. I mean, we're here to talk about Celtic.
I think the boy David Gemmell's just. I think he's.
Yeah, I will. I'll keep looking at it. But go ahead, Franny.
I was going to bring it up, so I'm glad you did. But I'll just come to you just on the North Curve statement, Anthony. I think, like say, Stephen's made a great point to do. Great for charity and stuff like that. Their tifos are class at times, and they do bring atmosphere and things. But for me, the timing's wrong. You're entitled to your opinion. Everybody is. But for me, I just think the day was a day for sort of a celebration and things like that. And then this is a fan base that want to try and get a standing section. I just think that's no great time. It's not going to help that cause either, because they're kind of causing a wee bit of divide, asking fans to move and stuff like that to accommodate them. And so I don't know what you think of your thoughts on it all, Anthony.
Very similar to what Stephen says. I do praise them for a lot of the the good that they do. But I think we were saying it before we came on air. It's one of the things that really frustrate me about the Green Brigade, that it's always, every time they look like they're making a wee bit of progress and it looks like they've learned their lessons of the past, yet again they go and shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, I remember, and I think the fact that Celtic won 7-0 that day, it kind of, it didn't get the reporting that it did. But I'll never forget that it was actually when Neil Lennon took it. It was the start of the 2019-20 season, and obviously, folk that remember, it was in the run-up to the treble the previous May. Both Bill McNeil and Stevie Chalmers had passed away, and the club had invited both their widows to come on and unveil the flag. It was like a nice gesture. But then when the teams walked out for the start of the match, they draped down this thing. Now, they're artistic guys. Do something with Stevie Chalmers scoring the goal, or Billy lifting the cup, or both. Just something that was quite unifying. And they put up I can't remember what the exact wording was, but it was very, very pro-paramilitary stuff. Let's just leave it at that. And you're just going, on what planet did you guys think that was a good idea? And it's a phrase that I find myself thinking more and more whenever I see some of their more stuff that goes against the grain. There's none, everyone's entitled to their kind of views, but it always seems to be about them. If they're not getting the attention, then they'll kick up a fuss. And like you say, today was about making the announcement that Brendan was coming back, and whether people like that or not, that's that's each and everyone's own views, and they're entitled to it. But don't put up I thought it was very childish, attention seeking, and it just yet again gives people that aren't for them. If you want to bring in your full stands and all that, these kind. If you want to make those kind of changes, you've got to take the majority with you. You've got to read the room, and you've got to convince people. All they've done today is just give everyone who's no for it or no for them all the ammunition to be like that. Didn't need these clowns, man. It's just I thought it was quite pathetic, to be perfectly honest. And but like I say, hopefully we got off to a good start in the new season, and hopefully the said banners will be a little bit more positive.
I think you're right.
Can you hold your breath?
Ross. We can only but hope. I think the majority of football fans, like we say all the time, we're a fickle bunch. And I think whatever you think of Rodgers and how he left and why he left, I think when he starts delivering on the park and his team starts delivering on the park, you park all that stuff to the side and just soon forget about it, and you start eating up all the wee sound bites again and fall in love again from to then get poached in 2.5 years' time again to go down the road. But
Luton Town, mark my words.
But anyway, let's get moving on. I'm only fucking 40 minutes in. I'm only on a second topic here.
Brilliant.
I'm going to do a roast on a Friday night and a Monday, man. So we'll move on to sort of the ambition, what we think the ambition in the club is now, because like we touched on earlier, Rodgers, he can't be coming back just for domestic dominance. Because yes, he'll be wanting to do that, and obviously continue to do what Ange done and what he done previous. But it's as he signed a 3-year contract. They mentioned about a 5-year plan. So should we be excited about Europe or that, Willie? Do you think he's got to try and maybe not? Hopefully next as soon as possible, but maybe try and get bed guys in and then building on next season, get back in, and just, what do you think the ambition is Rodgers coming in?
I think so. When you see the statements that have been coming out and the rumours, when all the discussions that have been taking place, I think that Europe's at the forefront of Brendan's mind, and rightly so. I think we're just trying to continue on the work of the last couple of seasons and try and get better and better. I think this squad's. I think
he's like one of the nodding dogs in the back of the motor.
I think this squad's a force to be reckoned with. I think we obviously could be doing with some more additions and push on, but one thing I think that we a lot of us said on this podcast and other podcasts that I've watched as well about Ange in Europe is that it's a plan A and there's no a plan B. I think Rodgers is a polar opposite. I think that he can change and mix it up. Although saying that, some of the guys are right. He's obviously had some horrendous results in Europe with us in his first tenure. But yeah, I think that should be the benchmark. I think it always has been. We need to push on and try and compete and be a much better force in Europe. Domestically, obviously, we've had unbelievable joy in all the trophies we've won over the past however long it is. But yeah, I mean I think that's the goal every season, isn't it? Domestic dominance, show that we're the number one team in Scotland, but then we really need to push on in Europe and be a force there again.
Nah, I totally agree, and I think that is one of the main reasons. I'll come to you next, even just because I caught. Obviously, I think it was Friday where you were quite passionate when it came to Europe, and I think it could get interested a bit here. And like you say, Rodgers obviously won 7 out of 7 of his trophies. Actually, I think I was listening to the phone in a wee bit in Clyde earlier, and I think it was Gordon Dale said that if he doesn't come in and win a treble, if he only wins a double or something like a league and a cup double, it'll be seen as a failure and a step was back because we came off the back of a treble. You're like, they're actually writing the narrative already. Like it could, so they're writing the narrative already. If he maybe only wins the league and a cup, it's somehow a failure because all he did was win every trophy when he was there before and potentially missing it. But What do you think, Steve? Do you think we're maybe going to exactly, Ross? Do you think we're maybe going to? Do you think he's here to try and get us back to being more recognisable in Europe again, like more, like push the boat out? Maybe we'll try and. I mean, I appreciate it's hard to say how we'll do in the Champions League. It's a luck of the draw at the end of the day. You could end up with an absolute stinker of a group because of how the seeds go and things like that. But we'll not really say where we maybe think we'll get to and stuff. But do you think we'll maybe try and go for that extra level of players? As good as the players are now, it's got to cost a bit of money to sort of replace the type of guys. But do you think maybe that's where he's looking to do and to maybe push us on?
Well, I mean, first of all, how bad is it the Scottish media are trying to push the narrative that anything less than the travel's a failure, eh? This shows you how much of a success that we've been in the last 12 or so years. We've absolutely dominated the landscape of Scottish football, and they're trying to pick at anything at us. If we win the league with no cups, it's a failure. If we win a double, it's a failure. Absolute joke, because you can guarantee one thing. If Rangers just won the League Cup next season, they're on their way back. Do you know what I mean? They're going to be challenging us and all that. Absolute passion. Russell just put in there, we have 150 watching live. That's fantastic for us, and we appreciate everybody who's watching and sticking with us. Hit the like button, subscribe, share us, push the algorithm. Come on, let's go. Let's grow our podcast as well.
That might be a new
exactly.
record.
It is. I think it is a record, to be fair. But in terms of Rodgers, you nailed it, Franny. He's not coming back to prove himself in domestic football. He's done it. He's beat the Aberdeens. He's beat the Rangers. He's beat the Hibs. He's done that. He's coming back with a plan in mind for us in terms of European football. And if you believe the assurances that have been agreed, well, you call it a mega transfer, Kelly. Do you know what I mean? You don't know. 30-40 million pounds in today's market isn't mega, but for us, it means you can maybe push the boat out and get 6-7 million pound players, maybe 2 or 3 of them at a time. I also think we have to get comfy with the thought that we're going to be losing a few of our star men, maybe the likes of Atate, Abada, Jada. Big money coming in for them. I genuinely believe that may happen. And with Rodgers, for me, it's European football. We've been an absolute joke in European football, in my opinion. Yeah, we portray ourselves as a big club, but we spoke about this before. I think me and you, Ross, as well. What do we see ourselves as? I think we agreed. Yeah, we see ourselves as a Champions League club, but maybe at a Europa League level. Do you know what I mean? That's the way we are. Kind of built in fan base, history, tradition, massive. Out with that, we've been doing nothing in European football for years. Yeah, we've had great victories and great wins, but we need to make inroads. And I don't want to make comparisons here, but basically average Rangers side got to a final. Let's be fair here. And yeah, Pam, 100%. You look at ourselves, haven't won a knockout tie since 2004. And I know we haven't been in many knockout ties, that's fair enough, but we've played the likes of St. Petersburg. They're beatable teams in my opinion. The Champions League group last year was an absolute failure, in my opinion. We didn't do anything in it at all. I know we played good football and had chances, but we didn't take them. And at the end of the day, you need to take chances to win football matches. It's important to me that we do well in Europe. And if that means finishing third in next year's Champions League group and dropping down to the Europa League and making a good run of it, 100% I'm on board with that all day, every day, and twice on a Sunday. We need to be up there challenging. We need to be in with the big money. Next season in the Champions League's vital. 8 games guaranteed. More money coming into the coffers. So, obviously, the league's your bread and butter. But why is it every year that asking for a run in European football seems to be out of the realms of possibility? When we get past Christmas, we're usually pumped out. So, I mean, we need to do better against these teams. You can't tell me at St. Petersburg or whoever it may be are better than us. Maybe on the same level, yeah. But we should be challenging them. We should be making a better fist of it. And playing teams like Shakhtar Donetsk and getting 2 draws, in my opinion, isn't good enough. And if Rodgers comes in and turns that around, I'll be buzzing. But I'll go back to it. The league is the bread and butter, and the Scottish media can shove the narrative, clean up their hole, that anything less than a treble is a failure. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. We dominate Scottish football. We dominate Scottish football, and that's how it's going to continue. Let's get to work. Come on, boys.
You had to ask him, Franny, eh?
We have to talk about the club's ambition, Anthony. We have to, but I'll come to yourself, Ross, because I feel you'll bite back a bit, you'll push back a wee bit, Stephen. Obviously, like we said, the Champions League, it's a luck of the draw. But I think if we can somehow maybe get a wee run in Europa last season, obviously, like we said, we didn't need to keep repeating it. The league's the bread and butter. If we need to make sure we secure that season on season, there will be times we miss out, but that's obviously bread and butter. What do you see as the club's ambition and Rodgers' ambition for coming back anyway?
Well, I've sort of alluded to it. I think Rodgers is coming back to try and make his mark with Celtic in European football. But I also think that had we been going into this season with Ange Postecoglou, for me, the remit has to be exactly the same. We have to try and make our mark into the European stage because, as Stephen said there, we've ruled the landscape of Scottish football for the best part of 10, 12 years. Okay, we had the one poor season at COVID, but we've done, and Rodgers has done all the domestic things. We know that the league title every season is the bare minimum for Celtic. That will never change. But next season, I said it in a previous podcast. Listen, we'll see what happens, what gets done in the transfer market, the ins and outs, and we'll see where we are come sort of August time. But as I say, we have to win the league. But if we go into Europe next season and we can manage to get a third place finish in the group, we don't know who it's going to be. But before the draw is even made, I want that has to be Celtic's aim. At the very least, they have to get third place in the group to drop into Europa League. If we got second, it would be an unbelievable campaign, quite clearly.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
If we finish third, absolutely, aye, that's what I was just coming on to. If we finish third, that is progress, whether we get a treble or not, because we've done the trebles, as I say. But if we get third place and get into the Europa League, the next remit, or the next for the next stage of the season, you've obviously got European football after Christmas. Your next remit has to be to go and win. I don't care who it is that we draw. We have to go and win a knockout tie and put that to bed.
Ross.
Get that, that sort of break that duck, if you like. And then for there, you just don't know. Look at Rangers. You got a wee bit of luck. You defend well. You just don't know. You could find yourself in a final. And I'm not saying that. Listen, that is not the remit. If Celtic got to the Europa League final, it would be unbelievable. But let's not make a mistake. I've said it before. If Celtic got to the Europa League final, they still better win that league, because that matters. Whatever any other team says, it doesn't matter if you get to a European final. That is absolute bullshit. The league title is bare minimum all the time. But for me, as I say, if I could take not winning any of the two cups if we got a decent run, certainly after Christmas, and won a knockout tie. I would accept not winning both of the cups, but I will not accept Celtic not winning the league title, especially having brought Brendan Rodgers in to get that done.
Nah, I totally agree. I think we're all kind of on the same page here, Anthony. We want to see progress. We have to start seeing it. It's not easy, especially in the Champions League. That's the money involved in that is just astronomical. And a lot of these teams, like in the EPL and that, and they've got silly money to play with. Like we're talking about in a £35 million war chest. They're spending that on guys to sit on the bench, really. So it is going to be hard to make sort of inroads in the Champions League. But like we've been saying, we've got to keep winning the league, especially next season when you've got 8 games, likely 10, so that'll bring more money. And it might be the progress in Europe isn't exactly got to be under Brendan Rodgers' tenure. It might be he might do the work for the 3-5 year whatever he's here, and it might be beyond that when you start making the money and stuff, and you can then invest it in the team. Maybe go and push the boat out in the players. Yes, your £9 million players like Edward didn't guarantee you a better player, but I suppose it's less risk. But what do you think your Rodgers' ambitions are in coming back?
Very much like the guy said, mate. I think it goes without saying that you always want to do better in Europe, because some of the stats don't make for good reading. I know you can manipulate them anyway to say whatever kind of narrative you want to go with, but the cold hard facts is we haven't won a home game in the Champions League for 10 years now. Obviously, I can't remember how long the knockout tie thing is. As I say, I know you can caveat it with other factors, but those are like those kind of small steps you'd look to kind of get those kind of monkeys off the players' back. You remember for a long time we never won away from home in Europe, and that kind of seemed to go on. And then once we got that first win under Lenny, which we'll discuss on the next Champions League rewind against Moscow, after that, we started to pick up, some points away from home. So I think, like you say, as the boys have already alluded to, it's very, very difficult, especially in the Champions League, with the resources these clubs have got. But I would say if we were managing third place would be absolutely brilliant, as the guys have said, and or maybe the stars are aligning even more, as we said, Europa League final in Dublin with Brendan back in charge. My God, what would that be like? I think it would dwarf the Seville numbers that would go to it. But I think if we were to
North Curve.
That's it. They can all stand behind the goals at Parkhead and watch it on the beanback. And but that's the thing. It's just that if we were able to maybe get a couple of wins, especially at home, get that monkey off her back. If you then drop down into Europa, perhaps get a couple of. As I say, it all comes down to the draw as well. And having said that, there has been a couple of draws where you think we've no really gave a good account of ourselves, shall we say? But I think with Brendan, I think we are hopefully a more united fan base. The players that are there, like you say, obviously a couple have mulled apart, but they've all got that wee bit more experience now, playing at the highest level. So hopefully some of those draws for last year can get turned into victories, and some of those the sort of narrow defeats you think of the likes of Leipzig and whatever, we can be a little bit more streetwise and perhaps pick up some points on the road as well. So as I say, small steps, but hopefully part of a bigger journey. But I think we've certainly got plenty of grounds for optimism.
Nah, I totally agree. I think it's exciting times ahead simply because of the domestic dominance that he had first time around, and he's obviously came back so soon. We're hearing how apparently he's got to get like I say, this 30-35 million, depending on who you're believing to spend and stuff. Improvements to Lennoxtown, improvements to Barrowfield. So it's all future planning, which might not see instant impact for that, but it might be down the line. Like I say, even when Rodgers is away after the 3 year, hopefully sees out his contract and maybe more. But some of these things that he's maybe putting in line and for the reasons he's coming back, you might not actually see come to fruition until he's away. But I'm going to move on to another topic that it might cause a wee bit of divide in the sort of the chat. It's maybe, does the board deserve some credit on this one? Now I'll come to yourself, Wally. I think we've touched on like obviously the names that were in the hat, like your Marescas, McKenna, Ipswich.
Confuses the Ballington every time he does that.
I think guys like that, not necessarily McKenna, but I think Maresca was maybe a Lowell, like not necessarily Peter Law, but Mark Lowell's choice and stuff. But I think Dermot Desmond's maybe just put his foot down, so to speak, and said, "This is Celtic's my baby," and I think he's got his man. But I think for me anyway, you've got to kind of. I would credit Michael Nicholson for kind of going, well, Dermot Desmond's, this is who Dermot Desmond wants. I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure this happens. And I suppose I don't know how much say Law on that would have to then push back on that, but I think sometimes you just, for me anyway, you can criticise the board when they're right to criticise, but I think in this one, I know Dermot Desmond's not on the board as such, but I think when he kind of gets involved, like you look at O'Neill and stuff, and then for Rodgers first time round, I think when you annoy Dermot Desmond, it's probably a good thing for Celtic. I don't know what you think about the board in this one.
I think you've absolutely nailed it, mate. Spot on with everything you've said. I mean, you've said it. I hit the nail on the head when you say that they've looked at the candidates and he's by far the outstanding candidate, and they just went and got their man. And at the end of the day, that's it. Never mind all the history and all the rest of that. And as much as there's some backlash for the fans, for what I've seen, the majority have been absolutely overjoyed at the news. So as much as actually, it's not a gamble for me, but I understand why people say that when they made the decision, because there is going to be a certain amount of backlash. But for me, again, that's going to be forgotten in time. As soon as he starts putting the ball in the back of the net and picking up points, and I think most that are feeling that way, I think most will feel that I'll stop feeling that way before then anyway, because they love their club and they're going to get behind him. It's just obviously hit them a bit when he first came in. But aye, so for me, it wasn't a difficult decision, but I can understand if they didn't go down that route, why they wouldn't go down that route. But yeah, kudos to them. It's he's the best man for the job out of all the candidates, and fair play for them to go on it and getting them, and to get him on a 3-year contract as well. Like we said at the start, I think that's massive for us.
Brilliant.
No, I totally agree. I don't know what's your thoughts on it, Stephen.
I mean, two different sides of me here, right? Let's break it down a wee bit. I think personally, for me, now this is just what I'm thinking. Mark Lowell and Peter wanted to go down the City route. That's my opinion, right? They wanted Enzo Maresca.
I think that's evident, mate. I think it's evident.
Yeah, I think he was in the running for a long, long time. What's happened is Desmond has got in the building and swung his you-know-what about and been like, here, I pay the checks, I pay the bills, I want Brendan Rodgers in, and he got his man. When Dermot Desmond gets involved, now a lot of people said this, things get done. He got pissed off after the whole Ronnie thing, brought in Rodgers. That was great the first time round. Then obviously he brought in Postecoglou, Mark Lowell and Peter were involved in that. And then he seems like he's got pissed off again with the way Postecoglou's left, and he's got Brendan Rodgers back in the building. That deserves a lot of credit from me. The board in general, Michael Nicholson, for going with Desmond in this one, again, proves a point. You know who controls it there. And it also, again, dispels the narrative for me that Peter Lowell is involved in any football matters at Celtic Football Club. Yeah, he's there as a non-executive chairman, and yes, he might have experience in people's kind of soundboard of him, but the fact that, in my opinion, he got overlooked in what his kind of choice was. Dermot Desmond called the shot. Michael Nicholson started the negotiations with Chris Mackay, the finance director as well, which I thought was very evident. And to get him in under a 3-year contract, like William said, is a fantastic bit of business. The rolling contract stuff is out. We don't need that right now. We needed security. We needed a level of manager to come in and keep going with the times that we've had under Postecoglou. And again, we spoke about it at length. The list was underwhelming. Moisey, Potter, I mean, he was a good candidate. Maresca, no. Do you know what I mean? McKenna, Knutson, out like a left field shout. We all kind of liked him as well. But Rodgers was the best man. Celtic went and got him, took him from Mallorca, his family home, over to Glasgow. Negotiations were done, week and a half. Desmond got the wild out, and quite ironically, made him the best paid manager since he was the best paid manager before. So, what a bit of business, and Rodgers getting a couple of extra million in his pocket. We have to be happy about it. We really do.
No, I totally agree, and I think who was it said that I can't remember. It was Ryan Taylor mentioned about how Rodgers was at. I didn't know he was at any funerals and stuff, but I noticed that obviously at the cup final and stuff. I think that was maybe a wee bit deliberate. He maybe thought, I don't know if maybe he knew Ange was maybe in talks with Spurs and stuff, and he just thought, I'll kind of put my face back out there, gauge sort of the fans sort of see how the fans are feeling, Ross, and stuff, and kind of see for there. And but I don't know. Do you think? I'll be honest, Stephen. I totally agree with you. I think the Lowells wanted Maresca, but Dermot Desmond said, no, I'm taking the reins on this one. But like you say, that Nicholson and Mackay, they got the deal done. I think you've got to credit them on that one. As much as Dermot Desmond's paying the bill for it, they got the deal done. What's your views on the board on this one, Ross?
Well, I said earlier, I think massive credit has to go to Dermot Desmond. I think that's evident. In terms of the Lowells wanting Maresca, I'm not sure if they were set on him, but I think probably they put his name into the ring as a possible candidate. But I think that for the word go, I think that Dermot Desmond has wanted Brendan Rodgers, and Maresca was in the ring, if you like, if the Rodgers deal fell through like the Eddie Howe one did. But I think Rodgers was the number one target. And for me, I think that if there's any pushback for either of the Lowells on this, that's worrying, because you need them all to be aligned, much the same way as you need all the fans to be aligned. For me, I don't think there has been any pushback. I think that, listen, there's water passed under the bridge between Peter Lawwell and Brendan Rodgers, but I think they're adults, and they've probably put that to bed for, as I said earlier, the betterment of Celtic. I think a lot of fans will need to do that as well, just for allow Rodgers to come in and do the job to the best of his ability. But listen, the board have had a lot of flack the last couple of years, but then they've had, you forget about all that. You forget about all that when the team are doing well, and right now the team are doing well. And like we've said before, we didn't need somebody like a Maresca to come in and try and carry on what Ange was doing. It was too much a risk. We just needed a man that we could trust. Brendan Rodgers is not like a box of chocolates, because you know exactly what you're going to get. And listen, the board deserve massive credit for getting this over the line. It's the appointment, for me, 90% of the fan base wanted, and they've got it done. They've got it done, and Celtic are looking. Well, put it this way, as I said earlier, if Ange Postecoglou had still been the manager, the remit this season was to do better in Europe. If Maresca comes in, you don't know what he's going to bring, so the remit can't be let's try and do better in Europe, because you don't know how he's going to be. I don't think Maresca then comes in and makes the same sort of demands that Rodgers has made, in terms of pretty much asking for what, if it's believed to be true, what Ange had asked for. He's maybe even asked for more than that. I don't think Maresca can come in and make those demands, because he's the cheap appointment. He's not experienced enough. But Rodgers has come in, and we carry on. It's like, it'll be almost to an extent like Ange never left, because the off the field stuff will all be what he was wanting to an extent. I know it'll be a different style of football, slightly, but for me, Brendan Rodgers is the perfect candidate right now for Celtic, and kudos to all of the board for getting it over the line.
I think somebody's dog agrees with you, Tay.
No mind for a change.
I wonder whose it is. I wonder whose dog that was.
That was Stephen's belly. He's hungry.
He's not at KFC now. Well, the poor lad. I don't know what's going on. They'll be going out of business soon. I don't. What's your kind of thoughts on the board, Anthony? I think it's kind of getting a wee bit mixed on the chat and stuff. I think folk are all saying it was not to do with the board. It was all Desmond. I think we agree, but I think what it kind of shows as well, like Stephen and Ross have touched on, it shows that Lawwell maybe hasn't got the power, maybe the fans' fault. Because I think, I mean, I believed that when he came in, I wasn't too sure if he was going to maybe have that same power again that he had, where he just got involved in everything that he wasn't meant to be doing. But I think Celtic maybe put themselves in a position and left himself open for anything that goes wrong, to say, oh well, look at Lawwell, it must be Lawwell. But I think this shows that he maybe hasn't got a medal and stuff. And it seemed when Rodgers left that they had a bit of a sort of a dodgy relationship. So I think maybe that's been put to bed, and they've had clearly talks and got to have at least a working relationship, which obviously is the main thing. So just, what's your thoughts on it all?
Well, one of the good things I've noticed about it, and it was true when he was in the job the first time round as well, him and Michael Nicholson were always reported to have a good working relationship, Franny. Now that obviously Michael Nicholson's the chief executive, things have been running a bit smoother in that respect. Well, a lot smoother, shall we say. You look at it, regardless of what you think of the board in terms of when obviously the Eddie Howe deal fell through and how the Ange Postecoglou appointment came about. One thing that isn't up for debate is once they made that decision, they backed down and supported Ange with practically every decision he wanted to make. You know, every whim that he had was catered for. He got the money he was very handsomely back in the transfer market. He was able to make improvements as well. And I think obviously before he left, he was wanting improvements made to Lennoxtown as well, which was all signed off on. So we've seen what happens when a chief executive steps back, sticks to the role of the chief executive, and lets the manager deal with football affairs. Now, in year one, it looked like that's what Brendan was getting to do as well. And I think there has to be, for Brendan to have returned, there will have to have been a lot of setting aside of egos, because Brendan might know, he might look at it and go, if I'm going to just have the same issues again, well, what's the point in me going back? He doesn't need the hassle. So I think he'll not have, we've alluded to it on the show already, but he wouldn't have returned if there wasn't those kind of assurances that he'll be left to deal with the matters regarding the first team and signings and whatnot. He'll have the final say on all that. And Michael Nicholson will write the checks and just crack on with things. And Peter Lawwell will do what, admittedly, he has a figurehead. He's a statesman-like figure. He'll, do well. He's, a representative on the boards at UEFA and stuff as well. That's what Lawwell's good at now in this stage in his career. But yeah, in terms of the actual decision itself, I think you've got to give them credit. They've dealt with this rather swiftly. It was only 2 weeks ago, the day that Ange Postecoglou was announced he was leaving to go to Spurs when the statement was made. And in that time, it's maybe felt like longer, but regardless, it has only been 2 weeks, and it's been best part of a week now where it was basically the worst kept secret that Rodgers was coming back. So this has been dealt with very swiftly, in the manner in which a big club should be operating. We've got a blue-chipped candidate to come back in and hopefully have similar, if not better, success than he had first time round. He's going to be backed handsomely, I feel. And when everyone's singing for the same hymn sheet at Celtic, as we've seen recently, the results are very pleasing.
On that note, I'm going to have to dip here, boys. I need to get my bag of cans. But good show, lads. Speak soon.
Oh,
right, mate. It's getting by my bedtime. No, thanks for coming on, Stephen. We'll see you later then, Dick. No, totally agree with what I say. I think maybe the way that picture, I don't know if you remember that picture, the way I think it was way Dermot Desmond, Ange, I can't remember who else was it, and the sort of deliberate picture was released, and then the next thing we know, Ange is away. I think that maybe annoyed Dermot Desmond a wee bit. That maybe embarrassed him, and he thought, "No, I'll show you. I'll go out and get my man." And I think, like we've said, when Dermot Desmond wants to get involved, he generally comes up trumps. And we'll kind of move on what we think Celtic might look like a bit next season going forward with Brendan Rodgers. Folk are bringing up transfers. Moussa Dembele, I think we all kind of clambered. I say we clambered we toyed with the idea and stuff because he's up for a free transfer. But I think with Brendan Rodgers coming back, I think that ship sailed. I don't think they're on the best on each other's Christmas card list anyway. I don't think they got on. But I'll come to yourself, Willie, first. How do you see us going back? Obviously, the shape won't change too much for the. Obviously, Rodgers seems to like the 4-2-3-1, but it's not too dissimilar when you attacking anyway. When you see it for Ange's 4-3-3. But how do you expect many changes in like personnel and stuff like that? Or do you think the fact that maybe Kennedy and Strachan and Kuhl's there, it might help keep the majority of the players? I think we'll want the majority of them, if not them all, to stay. But I don't know, do you see any massive changes in maybe affecting players that are there that might not fit to the style and whatever?
I think it honestly just all depends on if anybody leaves. I don't think he needs many. Well, he needs to. He's going to put his own stamp on the team, so he'll have to bring in additions. But I think it was Brian Warrior said earlier that he kind of hopes that Rodgers learns and can change up formations and all the rest of it. And I know at Leicester this season, I'm pretty sure he was playing 3 at the back, and so I don't think it's necessarily if he's going to stick to the 4-2-3-1 or whatever formation we think he's we've seen in his first tenure. I think that he can mix it up. But I am just excited to see what he can do. I said it on the podcast last week about the difference between him and Ange being that Ange is unbelievable tactician and no tactician. It's only one tactic he's got, but unbelievable in the fact that the movement of players and how we play as a team. Whereas for me, Rodgers can do one-on-one. Like I said last week, he came in. Forrest was the whipping boy, and he turned James Forrest into a monster. He was unbelievable. So I'm really, really excited to see what he can do with the likes of Jota and all the young guys, Abadas and on all these players. Kyle goes. I think he'll be more an arm round the shoulder and one-on-one coach. Whereas I don't think for what I watch in the press conferences and what players say, Ange was kind of more step back. So I'll be really, really interested to see how he gets on. I can't wait for the season ahead. But yeah, I think he'll need a few additions. I think it's quite. It's been highly noted in all the press that he's been given a war chest to dip into this summer. So, so I'll be excited to see. Who comes in. But like we've said, it's totally different to the last time round. He's got a fantastic squad at his disposal at the moment. So he's not having to rebuild a team. So just a few additions and hopefully hit the ground running.
Nah, I totally agree. And Ross, I think Willie makes good points. Like obviously, he is coming into a better team. And what he done to guys like James Forrest, Scott Brown, Cal McGregor as well, maybe to an extent and stuff. It just gets you excited to what he can do to this current crop and maybe adding to that and stuff. So, which do you think there's maybe even a wee curveball, like a David Turnbull that could maybe revive his career at Celtic or something? So, what do you kind of see, or do you see any players maybe struggling under him? I mean, personally, I don't know, maybe controversial. I think Maeda might. It doesn't seem like. I'm just more thinking of sort of how Sinclair was, and he would kind of cut inside and a wee bit more trickier out in the left. You're thinking that maybe a Maeda might struggle and stuff like that.
Quite possibly, Franny. It's quite a good example. I think the way that I remember Rodgers setting up first time around at Celtic, I would say probably Jota on the left and Abada on the right would probably be more suited to the way he plays. Time will tell on that. You all know what I think about Maeda. I think he's a great player. The work rate, the work rate and stuff that he does for the team it can't be ignored. But possibly that going forward. The other one, probably, I don't know if you'll fancy Greg Taylor and an out-and-out overlapping fullback. I think Greg Taylor's played his best football in a Celtic jersey as an inverted fullback, albeit I still like him as I think defensively he's really strong. I think Alistair Johnston, he might suit the Rodgers style better. I don't think he's quite fully, as good as he's been, by the way, I don't think he's quite fully got to grips with that inverted fullback. You towards the end of the season, you would always see Greg Taylor picking the ball up and that sort of midfield role, if you like, whereas Alistair Johnston was never inside as much as what Greg Taylor was. But again, time will tell on that. Listen, Rodgers he'll bring in a couple of his own men. Like we all know, he's going to get money to spend. He probably will lose some players. Who they'll be, I don't know. But again, like I said before, probably by the time August comes around, we'll have a better idea how things are going to look. Another one that I think he might. For me, I've felt like I did like him out in the left, but I think yourself, Franny, has been quite vocal in saying you would like to see him in the number 10. I think Haksabanovic might get a wee run in the team in a number 10 in a Rodgers formation. He might do better in that role. We've not really had a chance to see him, but he could be that, I don't know, sort of Chris Commons type. And I know he didn't play in a Brendan Rodgers team, but that sort of, he played that 10 role and he played it really well. He's a similar sort of build. He plays kind of the same as a Chris Commons. So listen, these are all things that in time we'll know. But listen, again, it's exciting times. We maybe are getting a bit carried away, but he's just been announced today and we're all excited. And listen, I'm just relieved at this point, delighted, and I'm just glad that we can now look forward and talk like how we're talking right now about what the landscape of the squad is going to look like come August. It's exciting, and I can't wait, to be perfectly honest with you.
Nah, I'm the same, Ross, and I think he's right there, Anthony, saying it's exciting. We're getting told about this war chest and stuff, and if we can keep the majority of the players, we know some might go and things like that. And fingers crossed it doesn't come in for anybody, because I think the Lurie Spurs might be hard for someone that we turn down, especially as the majority, well, everybody pretty much in that team, Ange brought to the club, really, so that he'll have that wee emotional pull to him. But I don't. Where would you? I'm not saying maybe. Well, where would you maybe think that Rodgers maybe be looking to improve on that team? As hard as it is going to be, it's not going to be cheap to try and improve in any of that position, or not going to be easy anyway. But is there anyone that kind of sticks out for you, or anybody that's didn't feature lately for Ange that you think might get a second chance here? I feel like.
I think similar to when he came in the first time, unless Ange is specific, and I don't imagine he would have singled out anyone that absolutely is a wrong in the dressing room. I think everyone, like last time, will get at least an opportunity to shine. It was the same when he came first time round, although it's been since documented that Ronnie Dyler had said to him that Stokes, Commons and Mulgrew were bad influences at that point, and he would be better served getting rid of them. It's ironic, they were the three that literally never kicked a ball under Rodgers' first time round. And but I don't see it. I mean, like we said, it's the first time it was a massive, well, not massive, but certainly a quite substantial rebuild they had to do. We weren't in a good place, despite the fact we'd won the league. Whereas this time it's a lot more settled. We've got all three trophies in the cabinet, and all the players are on long-term contracts. I've seen a lot of there was some rumours that he was potentially going to look at bringing in Ndidi from Leicester City, which I think would be, quite a decent signing in midfield, quite a versatile player. I would, it begs the question now, is they perhaps going to look to strengthen in goals as well? Joe Hart was Ange's boy, so to speak, and he is one of the ones where the murmurings have got louder as the season was going on last year, that whether we might look to strengthen in goals. And I do think we need another proper centre half to really strengthen there as well. I think I'm willing to give Kobayashi time, but he's not really impressed so far, and you just don't know what kind of condition Carter Vickers is going to come back in. So yeah, I think definitely for Europe, centre half somewhere that we need to improve. But going forward, we know that there's going to be departures, but I think with the Lurie working with a guy like Brendan Rodgers, the fact that we've got Champions League football, and the fact we've got plenty cash to splash as well, suggests we could be in for quite an exciting summer.
And I've just seen a comment there. I think we can, if that's true, we'll not be signing Ndidi, will we? If he's valued at 60 million, I think that one. But I've actually seen that rumour as well.
We won't.
To be fair, Anthony, I had seen that rumour about Ndidi coming in. It might just be lazy sort of journalists. It maybe just easy ones to come. But I suppose they're saying he's valued at that, but if they got relegated, the value might go down. There might be some mad clauses. I'm quite excited to see, again, maybe for a lazy thing, because I always had Mr. Dembele back, to see what he can do with I think he might flourish well under him and stuff. But what I'm going to do is, we might as well, I mean, we've still got 141 folk watching at what time are we? 5 to 11 on Monday night. So cheers a lot for Oys for hanging a bit. It's good. We Ryan Taylor likes your comment here, Ross. Indeed, we won't.
Been loads of debate in the chat as well, and it's been great.
It's been class. It's been absolutely class. He's been brilliant. But we're just kind of got to finish it, because we've got 3 guys. I mean, I've always been on about how I'm an absolute glory hunter when it comes to Scotland, but I think it's only fair that we touch on the weekend's result. We're all rightly buzzing about Brendan Rodgers' result, but I think, considering who I've got on the night, I think we should be at least talking about how Scotland reigned in Oslo. It was a great day. We were up at Gracie's Bar again, but just, I think it's a bit of a lucky charm, that place. Anyway, it provides the results in the big games, and it was a funny old game. I mean, like I say, I've been getting more emotionally involved the more I watch the Scotland games, but I still didn't take the disappointing results as bad as you boys and stuff. But I thought it was kind of not a cagey. I think Steve Clark set up his stall just not to get beat, which is, considering the great start he's had, he's well within his right to do it. A draw would have been a great result over in Norway. It's one of the teams it's probably a team you'd have said you were competing for second position when the draw was made and stuff. So a draw over there would have been a great result. And when obviously Haaland got that penalty, you were maybe, for me anyway, I was like, well, maybe it's not going to be, but it's, in my head, it was not the worst, because I was sitting like, well, we've got 6 points for our first 3 games, and then we a home game against Georgia coming up tomorrow. But when Haaland went off, I stuck a wee cheeky tenner on the draw, and 5 minutes later, I was counting my 90 quid, and I think by the time I'd camped in, I'd lost my 90 quid. I'll come to yourself, Willie. What did you make of Saturday? I know you were buzzing. Your quiet night turned into all day.
I was still struggling today, mate, after the alcohol that was consumed. I was meant to be just a quiet few pints for the game, and then after that finish, it was just, I had to celebrate through the night. It's magic time to be a Scotland fan at the moment. I'm going along tomorrow, and hopefully we get another 3 points on the board. And like you've seen when you were here, the wife's already plotting the trip to Germany. So it's magic. It's such an exciting time to be a Scotland fan, and we've got some magnificent players now. So it's been magic. What a finish to that game. I'm still on a high for it all, and then the Rodgers news today is even better. I don't know what, like the day I was at work, I didn't care whether I wanted to spew or take a shower or whatever. I'm being all over the place. It's been magic.
No, it was class, and like Willie was touched on the Rossies, him and the wife have got the trip to Germany all planned out and stuff. I don't know if you can remember, because you were calling home at 8 o'clock, but you got your time mixed up. Obviously, your clock must have broke.
My 6.5 hour jacket one.
You came up with a great idea. I know some folk in the chat might not believe it, but a lot of us are turning 40 this year and next year. They might not believe that, but you've got a great idea to maybe get us put a valid case forward to the wives at home that how we can get to Germany. And but what was your thoughts on Saturday? I know you enjoyed it, but
well, first of all, it's not a valid case. If Scotland get to Germany, I'm fucking going. But no, listen, an outstanding start to the campaign. 9 points for 9. We've beaten Spain, and that's us bet the 2 teams. Obviously, Spain were the top seed. I think Norway were the next seed. We've beat the 2 of them, and now we go into Georgia on Tuesday night. If we win that, listen, if anybody can collapse for that position, it is Scotland. But it would take something like drastic for Scotland not to get through for that. I think you play 8 games in the group. I think I'm right in that, saying that. Yeah. Like, you're halfway there and you've took maximum points. You look at it, you've got Cyprus to play. That puts you're going to beat Cyprus. I don't see how they don't beat Cyprus. That then puts you in 15 points. For to not get second place for that position would be remarkable. But in terms of the game on Saturday, I don't think they played really well. They limited Norway to minimal chances, but at the same time, I think Norway's cutting edge was pretty poor. They're not that great a side. Scotland are a better team than Norway, and I think, listen, I'm not trying to discredit Steve Clark, because I think he's been absolutely outstanding, but I think a more attacking-minded manager, Scotland have probably ran out easier winners in that game, but Steve Clark sets his sail up. I said it on Saturday, that the top of the map of Great Britain is just like, it's just Kilmarnock at the top of it. It's not Scotland. But he sets his team up not to get beaten. He wanted to stay in the game, if you like, for as long as possible and make it a sort of 10-15 minute game at the end. He stayed in the game, and then Scotland came out, albeit Norway obviously got their goal, so their goal was always going to take that step back, if you like, to try and protect their lead. But I mean, the first goal is just great tenacity for Lyndon Dykes not giving up, and then the second goal was just an absolute tremendous goal. If one of the top teams, international teams, scored that, you're talking about it for ages. The finish was absolutely brilliant. I'm not Kenny McLean's biggest fan, but it was a calm, cultured. No, but it was a calm, cultured finish. And listen, I've fought like Willie, like Anthony. I've followed the national team through all the lows, and I'm really, really enjoying the highs. Willie made a good point on Saturday. I get an amazing feeling when Celtic score, when Celtic win trophies, but when Scotland win, you know what it's like for a St Johnstone or a Hibs fan to win a trophy domestically, because you don't think it's going to happen. Well, you look like the baldy man and you've got a wee fringe there. But aye,
Like Ronaldo 2002.
Wow.
I'm loving following Scotland right now, and I would be amazed at this stage if they didn't make it to Germany. And I can't wait to go, hopefully, with all of my mates and just take it all in. Even if we don't get tickets, just go to a fan park and just take it in for a few days and listen, see what happens. Just like we're going to see what happens with Rodgers.
I know, totally agree. It was, I mean, it was good. It's like you say, we've won 9 for 9. I think it was Paul Dyatt was asking earlier. I heard only for the phone, and if we do beat Georgia, I think it is Scotland's best start to. I don't know if it's just a European qualifying event, but or just a qualifying event. But if you win tomorrow night, Anthony, I don't know how the usual know better than me how the fixtures work and who we play next. But surely we play Cyprus after that, and you're pretty much, I think if you get 15 points, you must be all but guaranteed to go through, regardless how well the results go. But even on that, I think as well, if we win tomorrow, due to obviously Spain not playing because of the Nations League and things, you'll be 8 points clear after 4 games. And it's points on the board at this stage is better than games in hand and things like that. And I thought it was funny how we were all asking the question why Kenny McLean came on and stuff, and just typical that he comes up with a really, really good goal. I can remember saying to Ross, the easy thing would have been do for him just to absolutely lash at that, and it might have well went in, but it controlled his finish and stuff. And I think you've got to credit Scotland and Stevie Clark. I know it was so soon after the goal, but the fact that even after getting the equaliser, it would have been easy to maybe make a defensive change and sit in, and with 5 minutes to go, well, not even 5 minutes to go, and just try and get a draw and go away with what you probably came in. But they stuck it out. You've probably seen that they were maybe rattled a wee bit, and it was a nice wee sort of a counter-attack and goal, and they got the credit at the end of the day.
They sure did. We got the rewards for taking the gamble, Franny. But just as the voice said, I mean, it was absolute pandemonium in Gracie's Bar. It's looking a wee bit calmer than what it did on Saturday night, but it was just absolute bedlam. And you say it's just a great feeling, and they're in a really rich vein of form now. I think Georgia, I think Georgia aren't to be underestimated. To be honest, though, I think they're a far better team than a lot of people give them credit for. But hopefully, with the full house at Hampden tomorrow night, wee boys absolutely buzzing taking him along tomorrow night as well. Hopefully with that home backing, we'll get the result we want. And like you said, it'd be a great way to just round off the full football season. Be getting 12 points, and like you say, you're pretty much 1 foot and maybe even half of a second foot in the draw for next summer. So be great. I mean, we loved the Euros last year, but it was essentially a home Euros, and obviously the stadiums were even the group stage were there. It was still less than half full, and it was, you were still just missing that wee thing. But next year you get the full package. It's a foreign trip. It's like a total adventure. It would be absolutely brilliant. So yeah, fingers crossed they can make it there.
Aye, fingers crossed. And like that, Marcus is saying, you're not downplaying Georgia, but we might as well just get carried away. Got to get carried away. Come on, we've got 9 points for 9. We've beat Spain and Norway. Got to get carried away. But that kind of brings us to the end. We lost there couldn't have been a lot of Scotland fans. We lost about 30 folk there. There couldn't have been many Scotland fans listening in. But no, I appreciate you all hanging about. It was a late one, just folks work commitments and stuff. We wanted to get as much of the podcast on as we could, considering the news and stuff. and just due to work commitments, we pushed it back a wee bit later. But thanks for everybody hanging about and sticking in. And did you enjoy this one tonight, lads?
Absolutely, mate.
Brilliant, man.
Team across the city will be, like you said, they'd have been buzzing when Ange left, but now that Brendan's in, there must be absolutely Michael Beelan, because we're going to go run the show next season again.
Absolutely.
By the way, can I just say, sorry, Anthony. I was just going to say, I just want to thank you for obviously putting the podcast back to 9:30 so I could make it on. I was joking to get on the night and talk about the appointment of Brendan, and I appreciate he's accommodating me on that. And I just, like yourself, I echo thanking everybody for coming on and watching and debating and getting heated and cooling down, and just great. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, you're bang on, Ross, and I think obviously we come on. I can't see who's all watching and what the live chat is because I watch this through my phone, and you're sometimes when you're sitting here, you're like, oh, God, is there many folk, kind of tuning in and getting involved? But it's great to hear, Ollie is on the night, obviously minus John, but we've had a great reaction to it as well. So we've loved doing it, but thanks to everybody for joining in, getting involved, and like you say, if you hear what you enjoy what you're hearing. Spread the word.
Aye, totally. I think we'll finish it in Brown Warrior. 3 in a row. Here we go. Here we go. Stay well. Keep safe. 3 in a row.
Beautiful human being.
Rodgers is here for 56.